one, and we are recording. Hello, Dawn. How are you?
I'm well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really happy to have you on the show today. Um, it was interesting. I was just on your show, The Superpowers, with you and Karen, and it was great because I found out so much about you, and we have so much in common. And
Yes.
I was like, okay, we're gonna have an amazing podcast. This is gonna be like I usually schedule for 50 minutes, but I think it's gonna be like an hour and a half. So if we go just
Probably.
we'll just go on, right? So
Yep.
one of the things I found out about your superpower is that you're a medical intuitive. So
I
I was like
am.
going, all right, girl after my own heart here. I like this. So how did that really develop for you? Was it over time, or was it just something that because of all the time that you spent working on the human body as a massage therapist and through acupuncture, did it just kind of evolve, or did you take a course and then you just were interested in developing your psychic ability and it all kind of fell together? Kind of walk me through your process.
Sure. It was actually, I'd say, probably a combination of both, which I think it probably is for a lot of people. I had always been interested in the metaphysical from a very young age, and I knew that I had psychic abilities, but I really didn't, other than keeping them to myself, I really didn't share them much with other people. And when I graduated high school and went off to study massage therapy in college, I just found that I could just feel, and I assumed that it was what all massage therapists do when they're treating their patients. They're, to me, guided by the body to go to certain areas, work on certain things that might not necessarily fall into the typical protocol of the treatment plan that we're taught step by step in school. So, but I just thought it was just what you develop as a massage therapist. You just develop that instinct. And it was a few years later where I learned that no, apparently I treat people a little differently than other massage therapists. And at that time, I started, I'd already been a Reiki Master. I did that while in college. And I loved cranial sacral therapy because of I'm a very sensitive touch. Like I can dig deep in the body and really feel those subtleties. I had always wanted to always wanted to study cranial sacral therapy. So I started doing that. And that's where I think it took my abilities to the next level, because the way that they teach it, I studied at the Upledger Institute in Florida, and the way they teach it is to follow your instincts, not just listen to the science and the research and the step-by-step protocols, but really listen to the person's body, listen to their needs, because it's our belief that the body knows best. So that's where it really kind of gave me permission to take a step outside my box and play a little bit more with really listening to the body. And that's where I started to develop a vocabulary and a dictionary. And I started to notice that people's bodies were saying things, or I was seeing things, or I just knew things. And when I actually paid attention to them and took a chance and followed what the body wanted, I was getting even better results. And I kind of became more of a holistic practitioner for people rather than just a massage therapist.
Oh,
So that's kind of how it started.
Wow. That's really cool. So just to clarify, so for a lot of people who are out there, can you just describe what cranial sacral therapy is? I've had it myself. I love it. It's usually, like, again, it's my massage therapist will have that as a little extra bonus. If you could just kind of talk about that, because I think that's pretty fascinating too as well.
Sure. It's an osteopathic technique.
Okay.
This one, the name cranial sacral therapy was coined by a osteopath, Dr. Upledger. And it's following the rhythm of the central nervous system and the cerebral spinal fluid. So as our body produces cerebral spinal fluid, our skull expands. And then as it drains down our spinal cord, our skull contracts. And based on how healthy those bones are set in the body, throughout not just the skull, but throughout the entire body, that movement can be restricted in certain areas, and that can cause dis-ease.
Yeah.
And so then what we do as craniosacral therapists is we tap into where these restrictions are and we free them up.
Yeah. Now, I just got a question too, as well, because you are a Reiki master too, as well. Now, you were doing that prior. Were you a Reiki master before you went into massage therapy, or was it after massage therapy that you
It
started?
was it was during. I had summer jobs in retail, and my boss was, her and I would talk about all that fun stuff, zodiac, ghosts, the whole bit. And she came across this thing called Reiki, and I think I was in my maybe my just finished my first or second year on summer break. She came across this course, asked me to do it, and I did it. And it was really cool. Again, it was my first time getting to study something outside of modern day Western medicine. And I just totally fell in love with it. So as the years went on, I took it very slowly. I took a year between level 1 and 2, and then I took 6 months between advanced, and then another 6 months before master. So I did take my time. But by the time I was done my massage therapy course, I then also kind of at the same time finished my Reiki master.
Yeah, that's actually a really good approach. I wish I would have done that. I kind of went like back to back to back when I took mine, and I
Oh,
realized
did
I
you?
didn't have time to process it, because that was one of the things, as myself, as I teach, you got to realize that you got to take time in between, so your body has to integrate all the changes that are going to be happening. So that was a really smart approach on your part. So your intuition was working overtime on that. And I remember
I
you
do
kind of,
take a long time.
yeah. So one of the things, on your show, when I was on your show, you were talking about how Reiki is kind of like our gateway drug. It kind of gets you
Gateway
going.
drug.
Did that really spark your intuitive abilities after you did the Reiki? Because did it really kind of just kind of open it up? Because I know a lot of people that I work with do the Reiki, and then all of a sudden they're like these really psychic freaks. It's like, it's amazing to see. Like, it's just they open, their clairvoyancy opens, their claircognizance, all this stuff just starts opening up, and it's really amazing to see. Was that kind of the same way with you?
I wish that was my story. Unfortunately not.
No.
It was a new tool in my toolbox, but
Okay.
for me, yeah, it didn't elevate me to a new level of consciousness, unfortunately. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
maybe I was just too young. I mean, I was 20, 21, 22.
Okay.
So I think I was still in that very scientific frame of mind. The way I approached learning Reiki was very scientific. And I was really still, I think, trying to stay in that respectable realm.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really cool that I could feel heat and kind of get a sense of where there might be either a trauma or something without actually getting into the tissue. But that was probably as far as it went.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very much clinical, because I mean, that's part of the programming, right? It's like, this is the set standard of how you're supposed to do things. So you can't deviate. And that's what I have a lot of students who are naturopathic students, and they're basically, they say the same thing. They get so hard to get in that structure. This is how you're supposed to do things. Anything outside that, that's like, no, 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 you can't do
Mhm.
that. No, how dare you do that? And it's like, and because they're craving stuff like this, like the medical intuition, they're craving that.
Mhm.
So, with your medical intuition, is it something that you do just on the side, like when you're seeing massage therapists, a massage patient? Do you do that on the side, or is that conjunction with that, or do you do like in a separate reading altogether? How does that work?
I guess after finishing up my cranial, sacral, and somato-emotional release courses, I I used to keep everything separate and let people pick what they wanted to come in, whether it was acupuncture or massage or cranial or Reiki. And I would end up using everything on each person. So about 10 years ago, I just made it one appointment. And when they come in, based on what their body says, that's when I start bringing out the different techniques, because each person is completely different and each session with that person is completely different.
Yeah.
So that was probably where I shifted without realizing it to a medical intuitive style of practice. But it was only actually last year that I kind of came out of my broom closet and started calling my the way I practice like a medical intuitive style massage therapy. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I think that's a lot of it, because I know I basically came out of the the psychic broom closet myself. I've been dabbling it for years. Like I've been doing readings off and on for almost 10 years, Reiki for over 18 years now. Then I had a clinical practice as myself. And then it just, I don't know, life just took a different direction and where I was going. And yeah, it took me a long time to finally people go, why don't you do this full time? And it's like, I don't know. Like, then finally with COVID, I always say it's like COVID was kind of this blessing in disguise. It really kind of forced me to kind of go, all right, you need to get back into this. And it's been amazing so far. It's been really incredible. So with the patients you're seeing now, are you seeing anything that's different because of your medical intuitive? Like, are you seeing certain patterns in people? Are they releasing more of the emotional aspects of it? I'm always fascinated to find out, as somebody who works with people on an ongoing basis and treats people, are you finding certain like dis-eases or certain emotional patterns that you're finding in people? Is it just basically under lump thing, like it's just stress? They're just all stressed. They're all upper neck and they all have the Tyrannosaurus Rex syndrome where they're from the computer,
Yes.
things like that? Or is it just something altogether?
It's funny you say that. Because of COVID, there was a huge shift. I couldn't believe the shift. What led me originally to making that switch and being more intuitive with my practice and letting my patients know, hey, if you're coming to see me, I will listen to what you're saying, but I'm also going to listen to what your body is saying. And we're going to negotiate and compromise. And you might not necessarily get just a neck and shoulder massage. You might get other things. And the people who came to see me are the ones that are okay with that. But when I came back, or when I created that, like made that shift, it was because for years, everyone was so stressed, so drained energetically, emotionally. And I wanted to tap into that to help people a little bit more than when people come in and they're, they talk about the Tyrannosaurus Rex or the tension in the shoulders. There's so much more to that than just physical tension. So I created that, I made that shift. And funny enough, with COVID and everyone being locked down, isolated, not having that physical interaction, the people who are coming to see me now, I'm finding their bodies are actually craving more touch. So I'm doing more massage right now than what I probably have in a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, it totally caught me off guard, but it makes sense with the times. And if I'm really listening to the body, then it does make sense that people are needing more actual physical touch, that loving embrace, that caring, nurturingness to it. And I still, I've got the people who have hormonal imbalances or gut issues, that type of thing. I find it does typically come down to the nervous system, hormonal system. But right now it just so happens that the body's craving touch.
Yeah. It's interesting. I know a lot of people have been talking about, touch therapy and stuff like that. And because of COVID in this kind of new way where we're not actually touching anybody, we're always this distance apart. And I know there's been a lot of research over the years that talk about how important touch is. And they talked about different societies where, hopefully I won't screw up this study where they talked about, certain cultures touch more, like Latin American, Italian, European, like French, they're always touching, hugging, cuddling. And they had a lot better health overall because of that connection. Where you take like the UK, everybody was, we're raised, don't, very, very proper, we can't touch. And you look at certain cultures and, those who have more physical contact and touching tend to be a lot healthier. But now with this whole COVID thing, and they're really pushing now, like this is the new norm, like no contact. And I wonder if that is actually going to make it worse because there is no contact, because of that different connection. Now, I know a lot of it has to do with again, heart-based connections, because that has to deal with the heart center and it's the thymus gland. And that thymus gland deals with, really important with the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that study? Or something similar to that?
I have, yes. And I love reading research. I love staying on top of all of that type of stuff as well. And that's one of actually the studies that it's funny you brought up touch, because I used to do a talk on touch, the importance of touch. And I would bring up how the different cultures do it, and the effects on those of us, say, in Toronto, who are a little bit more stoic, how our thymus and our pituitary and our heart and our pericardium are affected on a physical level, emotional level, and energetic level. What was funny though is that people would fall asleep in my talk. No one cared. No one cared about the importance of touch. But I think now, I think we're coming to the realization of just how important it is.
And I think that's really, I always, that's why I always kind of like, the universe has its own plan for us. And, it's really shifting the focus on what's really, really important in your lives, because the things that we thought were important are not necessarily important anymore. And the certain things that we thought were, touching, who cares? But I know myself, I crave it. I crave it all the time. I know that it helps me. Um, my friends, I have to say I have the best friends because they're the best huggers. I love people who can give a proper hug. And I have a friend of mine, she's awesome. She gives like the best hugs and you just feel that. I just feel like recharged up. My heart center fills up and I just feel like I'm off to the races. Like it's just that warm, comforting hug. And I think that's so important that we're missing from this because we're just not having that close connections anymore. And I think that's really something that's missing.
Yeah, and I worry about the effects because however long it takes for us to get through this, to get back to some kind of normalcy, I can see it taking 2, 3, dare I say even 4, 5 times as long to recover from the mental and emotional, and then the physical draining of not having that interaction with people. I am concerned.
Yeah, I definitely believe that too. I think that's really the kind of the bigger picture there that what's going to happen. Yeah, COVID is it's a shit thing that happened and a lot of people are suffering. A lot of people have died, all that crazy stuff. But there's that whole bigger picture that's causing it, the bigger health issues is those mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects too. That are not being addressed too as well. I know we always talk about, mental health, but again, with mental health, a lot of it comes from, I'm not saying a lot of it, but a lot of it could be prevented just by human contact and being connected. That sense of community and that sense of connection is such an important thing. I've always found that out, which is really, really important. And, it's interesting that you're doing more touch, basically therapy, and you're doing that. I mean, and it's perfect. You're the perfect person for it because you have such a big background in knowing the body too, as well. Now, are people coming to you like for specifically for medical intuition? Because now that you're kind of out of the closet, are they kind of calling it, say, Dawn, I got this rash. I don't know what's going on, or I got this stomach issue or this pain somewhere. I can't figure it out. My GP doesn't know what's going on. Are you finding people coming to you just for those specific reasons, or then plus the massage because you're such a good massage therapist?
Well, thank you. I've been fortunate that I've had pretty much the same clientele for 20 years. And the entire time they've been doing that, where they would send me, an email saying, I know this isn't necessarily what you do, but this is what I'm picking up on. This is what's happening. Do you have any insight? But just this past year, when I've made the shift, I'm getting newer patients who are coming to me with that intention of having some kind of medical diagnosis or being able to figure something out that maybe their GP hasn't been able to. And I hadn't thought about it too much after declaring that title, how it might actually be perceived by the general public. And so I'm actually at this point right now where I'm trying to navigate how to describe what it is that I do as a medical intuitive, because we're
Yeah.
all so different.
Yeah.
And that whatever I'm picking up on isn't everything, that whatever I'm picking up on is what either their body wants me to see or what I'm able to help them with, or both.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting just the last few new patients that I've gotten. I've gotten a call, at 10 o'clock at night saying, my husband's in the hospital, or he just got released from the hospital with kidney stones. Can you see him? And I'm like, why? And then I realize it's because they associate medical intuitism with being able to, I guess, magically make kidney stones better. I'm not sure, but it's made me realize how I need to be very aware of how what language I use. and how I present myself.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because, everybody's looking for that type of easy cure or stuff like that. And, oh, if you can just fix me. And they're always looking for that. And I know that's one of the things that, I mean, I struggled with too, is when I do my readings, a lot of my readings are basically health readings. And for the most part, it's looking overall on a holistic approach. And I don't consider myself what they would call a medical medium. And I've always struggled with that concept, like medical medium. Okay, so am I more of an intuitive diagnostic, or am I a medical medium? And I think for mediumship, it's working with spirit, that spirit's telling you what's going on with that body versus your own psychic abilities picking up for that. And I think for most of us, it's usually our psychic abilities. Now, do you find it's more of your psychic abilities, or is it with spirit that's helping you guide your intuition?
It's definitely my own abilities.
Okay.
However, I do practice mediumship, and I find by continuing to practice mediumship, it keeps my vibration high enough where I'm able to see more. I don't necessarily receive information from spirit, but there are times when I'm in with a patient, something's not really making sense, and it just so happens that their mother appears and kind of gives me some kind of insight into what it might actually be outside of something that's physical. And so there are those moments like that, but for the most part, I'm very fortunate to have the 5 clairs or the 4 clairs. So I use my abilities to really see what someone is presenting with.
Okay, so let's just talk about the clairs, because for those who are listening and people are not, understanding, for, it's, claircognizant, clairvoyancy, clairaudience. So those are things. So if you just want to kind of go over that, what do you find that you use the most? Are you more clairvoyancy and stuff like that? So just tell me what your 4 clairs are.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been trying over the years to figure out which one is the strongest, but I'm definitely, I think, par for clairvoyance, which is being able to see. So when I look at someone, I can either see what I call an energy cyst or see their body folding. I can see something, or even an object in, to represent something. So I can see things. I can, claircognizant is really strong for me as well. I just know. And that one's one of my favorites because you really have to trust that one, because it
Yes.
comes out of nowhere and there's nothing else but just this sense of knowing. So that one is probably my favorite, but that one I get a lot. And clairsentient, being able to feel, this was probably the first one that developed for me when I was treating a patient. I could feel either their pain, or I could feel what I was doing to them was feeling. Almost like a voodoo doll. Like, sometimes actually I still do that. I'm like, I'm just going to pretend this patient is me because I have the same problem right now. So kind of just.
I don't know if you should say that. I don't know if that's good advertising. People be going, listen to this, going, yeah, I'm not going to go see this girl. This is crazy. Yeah, she's going to use me like a voodoo doll.
I know. Yeah, maybe not the best way of explaining it, but yes, it's a give and take.
It's more of just a light description there, people. So yeah,
yes.
don't get all freaked out. So yeah,
yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Now that one too as well. Myself, I like the clairsentience, but I've been also really a strong empath. So the two combined together, I call it my curse. I called it for years because I just feel all the time, feel all the achy, gross stuff, emotions. Like, oh, it took me so long to figure out what it was and how to deal with it. But yeah, but claircognizant, I love that one too. That's one of my faves too. You just sit there and it's like, yep. You just know it. It's just coming through, and it's like, it's not me, and it's like all this information. Yeah. So definitely that clairvoyancy for sure. I don't know myself. That's kind of like the one I go to. Can't figure it out. If I can see it, but then it's like, okay, what is that?
Right. And that's where I think my touch comes in, is once I start to touch someone or tune into their energy, then I can get a little bit more information from the other senses, including auditory, like clairaudience, because then I can hear things that I think for me, it's all of them together create a
Okay.
dialogue from between me and the body and point me in the right direction of what the body's trying to communicate.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. The body always knows. I've always heard that from
Mhm.
practitioners. The issue is in the tissue, is what they say, you
Yes.
know? It's
Yes.
always there. So your body never lies. I mean, it's basically your subconscious mind that your body
Mhm.
is. And
Yes.
anything that's wrong, what's happening, it's reflected in the body. So, and it's the mental emotional that's kind of gets stuck in there, and that's those energy. And you know, you somebody like yourself who's a body worker just knows. Like, it just, that's the one thing I love about massage therapists. You can say, oh, I got a pain here, this is what's going on, and then they start digging around, then you go, oh, I didn't know that was there. And they just kind of know. It's like, you know how you like those old Ouija boards where your hands kind of like are dowsing, they kind of just know exactly
Yes.
where to go. Your hand goes zip, bang. And
Mhm.
it's just like, you know, meanwhile, hey, that's my lower back sore. No, 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 let's work up here. And meanwhile, it's your psoas muscle way up here that you got to work on. And then that's causing everything else. And it's just, it's always so fascinating, you know? And I think, you know, I think one profession that you guys get so underpaid for and so don't get the recognition is massage therapy. I think it's one of, that is definitely a superpower to have somebody who's a massage therapist. I've always been a big fan of massage therapists and what they do on a daily basis, because I mean, it's a difficult job. It's not always the best. I mean, imagine, you know, I can only imagine, like, you get some dude that's, you know, super hairy, and you know, there's always these crazy things. It's like, oh Lord, you're gonna see this guy. But but you're just a willingness to kind of go in there and get the grind. And like, I mean, I've heard so many things, like just your bodies too as well, because if you're in a busy clinic, you can get burnt out. Like, I've had so many people that I've known over the years who massage therapists, and they get burnt out. Like, I mean, their forearms, their elbows, their shoulders, their back, everything, because they're doing all the work. And then I found out they're the worst ones because they don't get massages themselves because they're so busy working at everybody else. And it's like, why don't you go for massage? Oh, I just don't have time. I'm too busy.
Yes.
I'm too busy. I hear that I'm too busy. I don't have
Yeah.
time, you know?
I will be glad to say right now that I booked a massage for 2 weeks from now today, but it has
Nice.
been months since my last massage. So yes. Yeah. And you know what? You're absolutely right. We burn out so easily. I actually left my practice. I closed it. I gave up massage therapy completely in 2019. And it was because I was so burnt out. I thought I was walking away from it completely. I went and got a job as a wine consultant, and I thought, okay, this is my new life. But it was when, you know, things started happening with COVID that I got that calling back to come back to practice. And by then, luckily, I had taken the time I needed to recover. And
Yeah,
this time I'm doing things differently. You know, instead of seeing 20, 25 people a week, I'm pretty much 10 or below.
that's
Mhm.
smart. Like, you know, it's
Mhm.
amazing. You probably needed that time just to, a way just to kind of recharge and just
Oh yeah.
let the body just kind of just, you know, and that's interesting. I kind of did the same thing. Like, even with my Reiki practice, I was in a busy chiropractic clinic, and it was just like, they were just throwing people at me, and I was just getting burnt out. And then I was also volunteering at a cancer support center too as well.
Mhm.
So I was just like, oh, it was just like I got totally burnt out, and just burnt out kind of spiritually. And that's when I just kind
Yeah.
of did that thing for a while. You kind of have to get back to it, but that's amazing. So one of the things I found interesting about you is that you're a triathlete, which is very,
Yeah.
very cool. Like, I mean, how did you
Oh,
get
thank
into,
you.
I mean, I look at triathletes as they're, I think they have to be partly crazy.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know about
Yeah.
partly. That might actually be the driving force.
Driving force. Cause I
Bat
always
shit
say, like, you
crazy.
know, like, how do you decide? It's like, I'm going to run a triathlon. If I had to pick the hardest, most difficult, you know, physically, mentally, even spiritually, to get out there, because you have to grind. There's three disciplines: the swimming, the biking, the running, and you got to do it every day, and you got to train different systems every day. But the fact that you go out in there and do it all the time, and all those crazy
Mm.
miles, like, my brain kind of goes, man, that's just nuts. Like, what was it? Just something in your life that you say, oh, I'm going to be a triathlete, or you just there's something that you were an athlete prior to doing this?
I guess, yeah, I've always been an athlete. After college, I wanted to get into running, but the repetitiveness led to more injuries. So a friend of mine got into triathlon, and when I was younger, I had swam and I biked. I mean, every kid bikes. So I thought it would be fun and followed him into this sport. And it turns out that I wasn't too bad at it. I mean, this was, you know, 13, 14 years ago. So I did quite well in the early years because it's such a popular sport now. It is high competition now, but back then it was still fairly new and growing. So
Yeah.
I got into all three, and it just helped me with cross training. That was really what it came down to. Was I liked all three sports, and by doing them all, it kept me injury free.
Yeah, that makes total sense too, as well. And it's not as boring. And that's one of the things, over the
Mm-hmm.
years, training and stuff like that, you just can't get bored. And I
Mm-hmm.
love the idea. Like that's when, I mean, I wasn't into triathlons, but I was a swimmer. I was a lifeguard, and that was just through college. Part of our college curriculum, we had a swimming was part of the overall. Swimming and running were the two main
Very
ones.
cool.
And I love being in the pool. I haven't been in the pool for so many years, but the fact that I love that cross training, like that was just so good. And I look back now, it's like, God, I was such a good swimmer, man. I could swim for hours, and I had some good speed on myself. But if I go in the pool now, I'd probably get halfway and it's like, okay, give me the ledge.
I'm sure that it would be one of those moments like riding a bike where
Yeah.
you pick it up and you transport back in time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's interesting because with listening to your story and then Karen and then Karen's husband,
mhm.
it's kind of my
Yes.
brain's kind of going, man, I want to get back in the pool. And,
Hmm.
it's like,
Maybe there's a calling there, huh?
well, just to get my fat ass, and do
Oh,
something. That's basically a lot of it is too, because me being an Aries, I got to go, 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 go. I'm always
mhm.
constantly on a motion. But I've been training for years, but it's mainly more weights and stuff like that and conditioning.
Which is
But
important.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's important. I like that difference, the different types of training too as well. Do you
Mhm.
find with your massage therapy, it gives you a better kind of feel for your own body to kind of know what's going on? Especially if it's like my Achilles is a little tight here, or I need to stretch this out, or
Yes, I see it both in myself. I can feel it in myself and then see it in others when people come in and they, look a certain way or mention something. I realize, oh yeah, that was me too. So it's both parts where, when I wake up and my elbow hurts, I'm like, okay, I need to, pay attention to that to make sure I don't develop tendonitis. But at the same time, when someone comes in and they talk about their jaw, then they, oh yeah, you know what, my jaw's been really tight too. So it kind of works both ways. Yeah.
no, that's cool. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about with your medical intuitive was we talked about symbols, and I always been
Mm.
fascinated about because I know I have my own language, what I see. Now, what we're talking about is when you're actually working with somebody. So, if those who are listening, and we talk about symbols, each individual is going to produce a symbol, and I'll just give you an example. So, one of the examples I see if I'm working on somebody, I may see a piece of pizza. And I use that when I'm training actually people too as well. So a piece of pizza, and you see that in your clairvoyancy, and you're wondering, okay, why am I seeing a piece of pizza? But then you kind of break it down so that there's language around the pizza. So the pizza could mean something to deal with Italy or Italian, but then the pizza could also represent junk food. And then depending on how the pizza looks, is it greasy? Is it not greasy? Is it cheese oozing out? So the cheese thing might be a dairy issue. So I always kind of look at those type of things for symbols. So this is when we're talking about symbols, and how to kind of figure out. I know you had some interesting symbols too as well. Do you want to maybe touch on some of your psychic vocabulary?
Pun intended with a touch on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is one of the I think the most fun parts of developing your intuition is developing your own vocabulary in your dictionary. And sure, it would be easier to just have everyone on the same page with everything meaning the same thing. But I don't know. I find it kind of fun to come across new symbols. I remember earlier on, and this is where I think both the clairs come in. I get multiples at the same time. As I remember, I was really young in my 20s, and I was working on a woman, and I heard the word daisy, but I saw a woman. Now, usually when if you hear the word daisy, you think of the flower, but
Yes.
it wasn't. And instead it was, I got the sense of a woman rather like her name. And so when I brought it up to the patient, sure enough, her mother's name was Daisy.
Oh,
And
okay.
that just happened to be one of those like mediumship moments where she was coming
Yeah.
through. But other ones are like the one I see the most probably is pickles, because because to me, pickles mean electrolytes.
Okay.
There's an electrolyte imbalance. So yeah, a lot of people come in either dehydrated or are, lacking, salt is still the enemy for some reason. So a lot of people will avoid salt, or, we're always low on, magnesium, vitamin D, that type of thing. So when I see pickles, then I know that this person needs some electrolytes in some way. And then I can go on further with muscle testing or something like that to be able to determine what is their best course. Is it supplements? Is it just simply eating a bag of chips? Or is it doing a Gatorade, depending on what their body tells me after that point. But at least that's the initial trigger. But I tend to get more than one at the same time. So I will get, if I see, another one is, I had a patient come in and all of a sudden I heard, I love avocados. And I could see an avocado, but it was like a really happy feeling. Like the body was happy to see this avocado. And then shortly afterwards, I saw eggs, and it was really irritating to me. Like eggs. It was just really irritating. So then that tells me right there, it helps me to gauge what the body is really trying to say. Avocados, I know how the body feels about things that it likes because of how it showed me the avocado. And then when it comes to the eggs, to me, that's telling me that the body wants me to bring up that maybe eggs aren't best for this person at this time. Either they've been eating too many, either they have a sensitivity to it or an allergy, but they might want to consider evaluating how much they're eating and how they feel when they don't eat it, and when they do eat it. So though it's kind of interesting how I can see something, but then based on whatever else comes with it, then I can actually have a better understanding of what the body's trying to communicate. And then even other things like, I know that, a hand coming at me with a bouquet of flowers, a lot of people might think, originally I thought, they need more grounding. They need to be outside. They need to be with nature. But it actually just turns out that it's their body wants to acknowledge some kind of celebration, either a birthday or an anniversary or something that they want to celebrate. So it takes a while, but it's still really fun to create that vocabulary.
I basically, the times I spent in clinic with the people I work with, and we're working on somebody, and I can just be there all day, and I just sit there, just like, this is new, this is interesting.
Yes.
I haven't seen this before. And it really depends on the practitioner I work with. When I'm working with TCM practitioners, it's all about various meridians or things showing up, and because I don't particularly have a background in the language of it, but I can see exactly where it is. I mean, I do have some knowledge of it, but it's interesting when you see the meridians, it's like, okay, wait a minute, that's lung, that's new. It's like, and then it's like when they start seeing it, and then we start conversing, it's like, oh yeah, that's the meridian there. Oh, that's lung one, and or that's GB20, and they're all like, it's like, oh my God, and it's just. Yeah, I love that aspect of it. And then you can see the different symbols, because again, their symbols are going to be different than what you're getting, which is always fascinating, because culturally, depending on who the individual is, everything's going to reign differently. Somebody who's basically a Westerner is going to be their philosophy and their understanding, depending on their culture too, it's going to have a different way of understanding certain things. Like certain colors mean certain things to certain cultures. Certain foods represent certain things. So it's always this kind of nice mishmash of different things. And that's part of the fun, I think, too, as well, is trying to figure it all out. I get pretty jazzed about that. It's like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I didn't see that before.
Yeah, you get to be a body detective. But you're absolutely right. I mean, someone, if they come in and I see a ball over their right side, just below their like right at the rib cage. Okay, there's something there, and it could be muscular. It could be the liver. It could be emotional, because liver is like anger, right? So then that's where I think having a background in some kind of healthcare helps, because you can go through a menu and kind of come up with what direction to go, what needs to be attended to, and is it just one thing or is it multiple things? So is it the liver because they've been drinking, but is it because they've also been they're angry, and they find that they wake up every night at 2 a.m. with the hot sweats? So then it leads you down this. Oh,
like, wait a minute. Yeah, are you tapping into me? Like, what's going on there?
Or myself too. It's COVID, damn it.
Yeah, that damn alcohol, that liver. I always say, it's excessive heat liver. That's what my TCM says. Yes. It's excessive heat liver, and it's like, oh my God, I'm just an angry guy that drinks a lot. I still have those unresolved issues I need to deal with, and the anger, which I keep thinking I dealt with, but apparently not.
Yeah. I've learned that too recently, that Apparently there's a lot of layers.
Oh
When
my
you
God.
think you might have gotten something, there might be something more.
What's the deal with that, right? Couldn't like, gods could say, listen, I'm going to make this a little bit easier. I'm just going to give you a couple layers and then you can figure out. But all these
Mm.
multiple layers and you just keep peeling it off. And it's just like, oh, I thought I dealt with that. No, and apparently not. And it's amazing how, when you're supposed to be dealing with it, it shows up in your face so quickly. It's like, oh, by the way, let's just trigger you and see if you kind of work through it. It's like, yeah, apparently not.
I would like to know, before we come here and we're making our plan, do we giggle at these situations, or like we're like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do to myself. I'm going to,
Yeah.
because it's fun over there, or is it, very serious and being like, no, I want to learn compassion and I'm going to do it by, by having these kind of experiences, or suffering in this way, like I'm curious. I guess we'll find out one day.
Yeah, I would like to think there, but from my sometimes understanding, I think there's like a boardroom that we're not invited to that meeting.
Uh,
And then everybody's kind of working on behind the scenes, kind of figuring out what you're going to do. And it's like, oh, we're going to be surprised. But, they come on and go, oh my God, this is going to be the best thing in the world. You're going to love this lifetime. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to have lots of chances to have a lot of opportunities to grow and have fun. Meanwhile, behind the scene, they're going, yeah, we're going to put this thing in here. He's going to be ill and he's going to have this, he's going to have that, or, and it's like, okay,
that's
great.
right.
And then you kind of go, goody, goody, goody. I'll go through the veil of forgetfulness and then show up in his little body. And it's like, and then you realize 50 years later and go, oh, they lied to me. Those bastards.
Yes.
How dare they?
Okay, I know. God damn it.
Yeah. It's like, I didn't choose that mother. Come
I
on.
know.
I didn't choose my brother. Oh my God. That
Yes,
was my friends. Oh, well, how the hell that happened? So
I know. And then it all comes down to the fact that it was your choice. So
I
it's
know.
all
I
it's all
know.
your
That's the
fault.
hard part. Accepting. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to deal with
I
it. Yeah,
apparently wanted this.
right. Yeah, I wanted to
Mhm.
win the lottery too, but I didn't get that.
I know. I have a question for you, if
All
you don't
right.
mind.
Oh, we're gonna reverse the roles here, are we?
Yes, I'm kind of curious because I don't get to talk about medical intuitiveness with too many people.
Okay.
And one thing that I do find is when you approach someone holistically,
Yep.
first of all, it's my belief that the body heals itself and that
Yep.
I'm merely a facilitator. I create little changes in the body to free up those blockages so that people can heal themselves. But when you're looking at things holistically, I find that it's almost the body is telling me just baby steps, because it's really trying to get the body to hear, or the person to hear, what it is that they need to do. And a lot of times it's personal development, personal
Right.
growth, personal work. And do you find that too?
100%. That's 95 or 98% of the times. That's
Yes.
what do I do for readings is exactly that. It's just little baby steps to kind of get them to go into the direction that they need to go on their healing, on their journey, on their soul's journey. And to do that. And that's exactly it. It's like little baby steps. You need to change this, a little change that. Just give them a little guidance, just go over here. Just, you got to change this. This is what's going on. And it just helps them, evolve their own understanding of themselves and give a better understanding of, what's causing those certain things that they can just change themselves. It's really about empowering. That's what I really like about it. It's empowering them to make those changes, because everybody wants to get fixed, but nobody wants to do the work, and I've been guilty of that. It's like, just fix me, just fix me.
Oh, I
But
know.
no, what it comes down to, I have to kind of fix myself. And it's just
Mhm.
like tools, but yeah, 100% on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I was kind of curious about that. It made sense to me on all levels, but I've been noticing it a lot more
Yeah.
lately. And I think maybe it could be also the situation. I'm finding there's a lot of people resistant to joy, just even moving towards joy. And I think the further, the more difficult times people are experiencing, and the more maybe their vibration comes down into those lower vibrating emotions, the body's craving joy more. But it's challenging, I find, to motivate people to move towards joy, do what they find is joyful.
Yeah, I think a lot of it it's fear. It's just fear of the unknown.
Hmm.
I mean, it's loss of identity too. And we get so stuck in our stories. You know, I was stuck in my story for so long. I didn't even know I was in a story until you kind of look back and then you realize, oh, I'm back in my story again. Then it's realized you just like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. But then it's just that it's so comfortable. It's so new. It's like for me, I mean, I'm exactly that person. I didn't know what joy is. I have no, I mean, you could describe to me, and that's what always drove me nuts is like when you go to and you listen to these meditation tapes and these certain people, it's like, oh, get the feeling of joy, get into the feeling. And part of my brain's going, I don't fucking know what joy is. I have no clue what that is. I couldn't describe that feeling if you paid me to. I had no clue on that. There's no way.
Hmm.
Joy? What's joy? But then, you know, eventually there was some truth to it. You know, just got to let go. But again, that was more of a stuck energy that was in my body. Like everything was just stuck in there, like energetically, the emotions. And then once, like, let's just say, for example, we talk about the liver. Once you start working on that liver and that anger starts going, it's like all this release of energy. And that energy is basically, that's that joy that sits in there. So the body kind of goes, ooh, what's that? That's weird. But you got to do the work in order to get there. And again, most people don't want to do the work. Give me a pill, fix me, and then I'm on my way.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, it's not like that. It just kind of
Right.
sucks.
And maybe, you know, we talked about it where we hope there's a future. There will be a future where Western and Eastern and medical intuitiveness and the whole realm of holistic health come together and work together to inspire everyone to be their best self, their healthiest self, rather than, not that I don't like doctors, but you know, there's Western medicine and they prescribe pills, or there's those of us in healthcare who might be more promoting having some kind of system in place to help with healing and personal growth. Like it would be nice if they came together and it wasn't just always the easy solution of taking a pill, and people were more motivated and inspired to take responsibility for their own health and be
I,
their
I,
own
th-
health advocate.
I think it will. I mean, it's
I
just
hope
like,
so.
it's like anything. It just, sometimes it does take a little bit of time. You know, you got to change a lot of minds. People have to kind
Mm-hmm.
of learn themselves, you know, to take action. You know, we get so dependent on everybody else to take care of us, and
Mm-hmm.
we get into that victim state. So, I mean, it's really interesting. I firmly believe there's a precipice of change, and it takes, you know, all it takes, like, if you think about it, it only takes one medical doctor to have that change of thought. And all of a sudden their life, like everything around them changes. That one whole aspect of it just changes. It only takes one. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on where they are, because they're already at that status, that level of I'm a doctor, and it's such a kind of that status way of thinking and where that ability is. And if it only takes one, and then they start influencing other doctors and they start looking at other aspects, because I always believe, bottom line, becoming a doctor is one of those gifts to humanity, because you really are in service. It's just the product of the medical industry is not the best product, but I think at the heart level,
The
those people
intention.
who are doctors, and you know, whether it's an MD or a naturopath and things like that, they're really in the process of healing. They're really helping.
Mm-hmm.
That service. It's just sometimes it's just a little shift in thought process and how to develop it. But I think it's going to happen. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm trying to do my part, and I think if you do your part, it's about educating people and just helping them kind of see the differences on things like that. And then I think it just snowballs from there.
I agree, and you know, your show is so wonderful for that because you know, a lot of times people just don't know what they don't know, and they don't know that there's other options out there. They don't know that there's other ways, and hopefully, yeah, by you spreading the word and saying, hey, look, there are these other ways of doing things, and there seems to be some kind of benefit here. Why don't we kind of pause for a moment and take a look and give it a try?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's well said.
Hmm.
So, Dawn, we're almost out of time.
Oh, that went by so fast.
It went by, like, I know, you know, people think, oh wow, like we're next, you know, you're chatting away, and then it's like 50 minutes later, it like we're almost like we're done. Like it's just
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
that is
So
wow.
that being said, Dawn, you're gonna have to market yourself a little bit there. So you're gonna have to tell everybody out there in the World Wide Web who's listening on Spotify, Anchor, and all that stuff, but also people who are watching the video on YouTube. Where can they find you if they want to have a consultation? If you're locally, you're in the Canada, in the Toronto GTA area, and they want to find your services, how can they find you?
Okay, well, I am in Caledon,
Okay.
so northwest of Toronto. And my business name is Being Alchemy. So they can always look me up on the internet, beingalchemy.ca. You can also type in my name, Dawn Rockall. There's always a whole bunch of stuff like that on there too. And if you wanted help with learning about all the different areas too, your podcast is fabulous because of the content. You go into such detail, which is nice. But then I also have a YouTube channel myself with my friend Karen, and we touch on the different modalities that healthcare providers can do of service for people to help them find their way to being their best selves as well. And that show is Spiritual Superpowers on YouTube. And we
Fabulous
also have a
show.
website, Pardon me?
Fabulous show.
Oh,
I just have to, I
thank
have
you.
to say,
Yes. Well, it's all
the fact
about
that I
our
was
guests.
on it
Our
too
guests
as
make it
well.
fabulous. Yes.
Likewise,
It's
it's reciprocal too as well. You got to have good guests, right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's all about good energy, having the same thing, and that's what I think it's really important now. We're building our community. We're helping people out. I got this really amazing email the other day. I'll just want to quite share. I had a lady reach out to me on Facebook, and from the States, and she was just so happy. She's struggling. She's on her journey. And, with COVID and stuff like that, and she lost her job, but she says, thanks for putting out this podcast, this free information. And it kind of like, I finally said, oh, this shit's working, if I can just, I felt so good. And I really appreciate that. So if you are listening, again, thank you so much for listening too, as well. Cause I really appreciate that too, because, that's part of this whole thing, this process, the fact that you and Karen, myself, and everybody out there who are doing these podcasts and just trying to educate and inspire people to help make them make changes during this crazy time. So Dawn,
And let them know they're not alone.
Yeah.
Like there are people out there, and just like-minded people. You can find your tribe anywhere, and hopefully,
find the tribe.
Find the tribe.
I like that. Well, that being said, Dawn, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. You're such a lovely energy. Yeah, if you're looking for an amazing massage, you want to get healed, you want to have an amazing time, just feel good, feel better. And if you want a consultation, please contact Dawn for sure. I hope you get super busy.
Thank you.
You may have to open your own clinic.
I can help people. That's what it is. Pardon me?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to open a second location and hire people now and train them how in your special techniques. So I think that's good.
You send your your trainees to me, and then we'll set up shop.
Maybe we should talk after this, and maybe we'll figure something out, because there's going to be a lot of great people. So that being said, Dawn, I'm just going to close off this show here. So this has been the Metaphysical Mentor Podcast with Michael Philpott. Thank you so much for joining me today, and goodbye for now.